Another edition of the VolReport.com podcast on Rivals.com. We are the Tennessee site. You can find us at Tennessee.Rivals.com. I'm Tyler Mansfield, site publisher, joined today by our full-time football writer, Noah Taylor. You guys met him last week on here. And now we have a new person, our full-time men's and women's basketball. Well, I will say men's, part-time women's when we cover them, which will be some. And also, people have been asking about baseball. He is our full-time baseball writer as well. And we'll help out with football just like I'm doing everything else. So we are all here. That's Tyler Wombles. Welcome in. Happy to have you on the board, on our site. And we have a good team. I mean, recruiting writers, our team writers are in the house. So, yeah, happy to have you.
Glad to be here. Really excited about this opportunity and just ready to get rolling.
Now's a good time, too. Week 3's in the books. Obviously, a big Akron win. A big Tennessee win over Akron, 63-6. About what we expected. We knew it would be a blowout game, worse than Ball State, and that's what it was. 63-6. Tennessee puts up nearly 700 yards of offense. Hendon Hooker, once again, a strong game. Only had to throw 18 passes to get 300 yards, 2 touchdowns. Joe Milton, 4 for 5, 2 scores. The worst thing about the game, the only worst takeaway you can take from a game like this is injuries. Cedric Tillman, Jabari Small, Warren Morrell didn't play. So that's where we stand now. People are curious. All right, they played a blowout game. Why, first of all? Secondly, are they good to go for Florida? Well, Noah Taylor and Tyler were at the press conference today. Josh Heupel, as he usually does, didn't say much. We won't know much until probably 3 o'clock on Saturday. But I'll turn it over to you guys. Tell me what you heard today, if there's any update, and what we can expect, heading into Saturday from this point.
Yeah, I think what Heupel said was about to be expected, with Cedric Tillman, Jabari Small. Not a lot of chance to get them on the field yet. One thing that was really interesting that I thought was he was asked, would he feel comfortable putting veteran guys on the field Saturday if they don't get a lot of reps this week? He said he's 100% comfortable with that. Obviously, ideally, he'd like to get them more involved in practice this week, but it might be a situation where he does rest those guys because he trusts their ability to go out there and play. I think that was probably the biggest takeaway from today for sure.
Yeah, I totally agree with that one. I mean, obviously, we know by now Josh Heupel already. He's not gonna give you much at all if he gives you anything in terms of injuries. But so we don't really know right now where those guys are in terms of their injuries. But I think Noah had a really good point there. Obviously, this depth of this team is going to be very important, and especially early in the season, you got a guy like Cedric Tillman. Obviously, he's easily their best receiver, one of the best players on the team. If he's maybe able to play, do you play him? Do you risk it? Do you not? How do you look at your depth there? So we'll see later how that goes on. But I think that would be, this is a huge game, obviously, a top 25 matchup, college game day. But, you've still got a lot of games left to play. So that'd be an interesting like I said, we don't know exactly where they are right now, but that would be an interesting question if I'm Josh Heupel.
That's a really good point, too. And I think in my Monday morning column this morning I wrote, I was looking at things like this. People always wonder, why do you play your star players in games like this? Well, I mean, it's week 3. You're not going to play 2 games and then set out a week. This is how it goes. But obviously, 50-point favorites coming in, you kind of have an idea where it's not going to be pretty at all. But for Jabari Small, obviously you're going to play some. But on the second play of the game, get hurt. I mean, it doesn't happen often. So even if he played one half, he still got banged up. Tillman was a second quarter injury. Obviously the high catch and the player from Akron had the low hit. That doesn't work out well. Akron, obviously, Tennessee Vols fans are not happy with the way Akron was tackling throughout the night, going low. Not clean whatsoever, but I think it's 2 minor injuries. I think they'll play. I think they'll be fine. Obviously, people may know more than what we've heard so far, but, I mean, it didn't look bad. Maybe a sprain. He can fight through practice this week and see how he is on Friday or Saturday. But that's beside the point. We'll see how things play out. But it is Florida week. Akron, there's not much to discuss from that game. It's over. Tennessee's 3-0, ranked 11th in the AP poll. High ranking for them. Florida's now 20. Had a battle with USF for a win on Saturday. Florida on paper, Anthony Richardson was really hyped up coming to the season. A quarterback who Napier called him maybe NFL talent, and we've heard this and that about him. But so far throughout the year, he hasn't thrown a touchdown pass yet. Interceptions over touchdowns. Florida is obviously one loss to Kentucky this year, but they're not playing what people thought they would. Obviously, it's a new team there, new culture. What have you guys seen out of them? I know me and Noah watched the Indiana UK game in Pittsburgh at a little restaurant, so we saw kind of what they did. But are you guys shocked with Anthony Richardson, how his stats have not performed the way that people would have thought so far?
Yeah, I thought, especially after week one, with the way he played against Utah, didn't throw a lot in that game, but he didn't need to. He did a lot with his legs, kept some plays alive. Kentucky game plan for that. I think Kentucky kind of provided a blueprint for how to stop him. Some interesting comments too, a little bit, which Tyler, you put that on the website right now with Billy Napier's comments today at his press conference. It kind of sounds like they're really worried about running him for some reason. I know there's there's not a lot of depth at that quarterback position. They have Jack Miller, an Ohio State transfer, who's out, I believe, with a broken thumb for 3 or 4 weeks. So maybe that's one reason why. But I mean, you got to be a successful quarterback in any level of college football. You got to also be able to throw the ball. They're not doing that well at all. Like you mentioned, no passing touchdowns. I think he's got like 3 or 4 interceptions. Watched a little bit of a rerun of USF the other day, and could definitely some really bad picks there in that game. So it's shocking that this offense is so one-dimensional right now. I think that's something Tennessee will obviously be able to exploit. But yeah, I mean, if you would have told me they would have beat Utah week 1, but then look like they have the last 2 weeks, I wouldn't have believed it. They look very beatable from Kentucky, and especially to USF, who's not a very good football team.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll just go a little bit more on that to say, I think with Anthony Richardson, obviously it's clear how talented this guy is. And I don't know that anyone would have been really surprised had he come in and done really well through all the time. But, also, I mean, look at the situation the guy's been in. I mean, look at, the fall Dan Mullen had last season. He's playing in a different scheme, a new head coach. He's had to split reps in the past. Now he's a guy. I mean, it's just, that's a lot to put on a guy to come in and compete at this level and do really well right away. So, I think I could have seen him going one way or the other. I don't think it really would have surprised me if he come in and, just blown it away all the time, or, seeing him struggle. And, obviously we don't know exactly what, Billy Napier is going to be yet there, and he's still establishing his offense and everything they've got going. So, I think Tennessee definitely has the edge there, with what Hendon Hooker is and, his experience in his offense versus Anthony Richardson, who's gone through this transition and isn't totally in the best of situations.
Yeah, and looking at Florida on paper from the USF game, 329 total yards, only 112 passing yards, 217 were rushing, 7 yards per play is solid, but 3 for 8 on third down, 6 penalties, 48 yards, 2 picks by Richardson. They lost time possession by 13 minutes. Richardson, 10 for 18 for 112 and 2 interceptions. For an SEC quarterback who was, like I said, very hyped up coming into the season. I'm still shocked. That's kind of like my Will Levis thoughts. I will get into the UK week. I think he's much better than Richardson, obviously, but just there are some overhyped quarterbacks in college football right now. Hendon Hooker is not one of them. He proves himself every single week. He doesn't throw goal line interceptions like Will Levis did. He doesn't throw 2 picks in the game against USF like Richardson did. But that's besides the point. This Florida team has work to do, and we see because of that, Tennessee is a now 11-point favorite. 11-point favorite in an SEC matchup against a team they've lost to since, 2017. That's kind of shocking. And we talk about the atmosphere of the game. It's Neyland Stadium. It's checkered Neyland. College GameDay is there for the first time since 2016, which was that Florida game that Tennessee came back and won by 10 points, which was crazy. I watched that on ESPN or CBS, whoever had it that night. And now it's at Neyland. I mean, we're in Knoxville this weekend. It's a huge matchup, 11 versus 20. So it's jumping the gun, to Florida, Tennessee. I think Tennessee is much better overall and in every area. This is the game where Tennessee can really prove itself. And people are like, well, Florida's not as good as Tennessee is. Well, that's okay. If you prove yourself this week, people are going to give you more respect than what you're getting right now. You might jump up to top 10 with a win. You'd be 4-0 going into a bye week, which would be huge before LSU. There's a lot right on this game. And no, I'll go to you with that. From your perspective, how big is this game? And do you feel like, just like I said, Tennessee is obviously the favorite on paper, but do you feel like they are actually the real favorite? This is a game they could win at home and to show the world on CBS and college game day people that, hey, we're legit.
Favoritism for Tennessee, and this week is definitely warranted. Didn't think I'd be saying that for a Florida game. That's a high 11 points. That's pretty big for a Florida Tennessee game. I don't know if that's ever happened at least since the 90s, but I think that there's definitely a lot of positive momentum on campus. There's a ton of hype for this game, and rightfully so. I mean, I'd be shocked to see them lose this week. I think that game day being there obviously adds another wrinkle. People are going to be hyped from time they wake up till the time kickoff starts. But absolutely, I think there's definitely warranted belief there for Tennessee to come out and play really well. And I say that too. I know in the past Tennessee's lost to Florida teams that weren't better than them. That's happened too. I don't see that this week. I'd be shocked if that was the case. I guess I shouldn't be with the way this rivalry's gone at times, but Florida, just the last 2 weeks have been. I wanted to see, not necessarily that I wanted to see this, but how would they respond after the Kentucky loss? Had every reason to have momentum. See what they did offensively after what they did after they looked so good against Utah, and they took a step back, and they did it against, like I said, a USF team that was destroyed by BYU in week 1, and I think Howard played them close a couple weeks ago. So. That was just a very ugly win for them. If there is such a thing, that was an ugly win. And I just right now going into this, I'd say all the momentum is definitely with Tennessee, and it absolutely should be.
Yeah, and I'll just add there too. Can we talk a little bit about how much things have changed in a year? I mean,
absolutely.
Yeah, Noah and I've talked about that a little bit. I mean, it's just insane. I mean, you look at where this Tennessee team was at this time last year, where Florida was last year, and what that game ended up being. Flip it in a year. I mean, it really is almost flipped. I mean, Dan Mullen had one of the craziest crashes I've ever seen in college football. Josh Heupel has really turned this team around. I mean, when Tennessee comes in as an 11-point favorite after what happened last season, I mean, the narrative is totally flipped. And that's the product of having a coach and a staff and players in there who have bought in and have really bought into those changes, and you've proven it on the field. And so it's astounding to me how much these things have changed and how much the outlook is, and just seeing that, Tennessee is that 11-point favorite. I mean, that's just crazy.
And that's the main thing that really shocks me. I mean, we know Tennessee's a better team, but 11 points and it's college game day. Like, wouldn't game day go to Duke, Kansas? And if it's going to be a blowout, if they think it's more than like a 5-point spread, obviously what Texas Bama was further away from 11 points, but we see how that game played out. So, like we know, Florida Tennessee could be, it could go one of many different ways. We'll see how Tennessee shows up. Will they play to where they can play at? Will they be fully healthy? Will Richardson have some kind of crazy game and just prove everybody wrong and throw for 400 yards? I doubt it, but it could happen. We will see. And speaking of what Tyler said, Billy Napier said today, quote, "You can see where Coach Hype and his staff have improved in their time there. A lot cleaner product in all 3 areas of their team." I think he agrees with what everybody else has seen. This Tennessee's team last year, they haven't changed much. I mean, from a rotation perspective, from a player perspective, the staff's in place. It's just, I think the culture's there now. They know how good they can be. Players have bought into the system through 2 years now, well, a year and a half. And now they know that, hey, we can keep winning and keep climbing. I mean, this is a team, we know, talked about it last week on the last week's show. If they beat Florida, that's another ranked win. That's 2 ranked wins within the top 20. And then you have a bye week. Go to LSU, who, I mean, last week they fought back from Mississippi State, but should have lost that game, really. And now if you go there and you're 5-0, heading down the stretch, and you have UK coming up after that, I mean, we could be covering a top 5 team at some point this season. It just depends on what all happens. I think they'll lose at some point. I just think it's going to happen. But I mean, I went from saying 8 wins this year to 9 wins, and now I'm thinking they might get 10 in the regular season. It just depends on what happens. Obviously, my first year on the beat, so I can be proven wrong because we see how Tennessee 7-6 last year, so it's been better than that. The Pruitt era, the downfall of that. Bush Jones era, downfall of that. I mean, they haven't been legit top 5 material, top 10 material in a long time. So now I think we could get there this season. Noah, back to you for this. How big is this atmosphere going to be? I mean, tell us. I mean, you've been to some big games there. Tyler has too, I'm sure. Just college game is going to be there on Saturday morning early. People will be out there. I mean, going crazy. The tailgating festivities will be wild. For me personally, I'm driving into Knoxville Friday early as I can because I got to be there for the full scene. I don't want to be stuck in traffic trying to get to Neyland on game day. Just tell me what you think this atmosphere will be like come Saturday.
Yeah, so I've been on the beat since 2019. I've been trying since probably Saturday night to think about a time or a game in the last 4 years that has even matched this. And I can't think of one. At least one. There's obviously big ones. Every year Georgia's going to draw a crowd. Florida came here. 2020 obviously was a weird year. There was a limit on who could be in the stadium, but BYU was pretty big. That was a pretty cool atmosphere. I think this is going to blow all those out of the water. It's just not only are you playing Florida, Florida's going to draw a crowd anyway because it's Florida. You've got a chance to beat them. And not only do you have a chance to beat them, you have a chance to let out 14, 15 years of just frustration on them. I know they beat them in recent history. 2016, they had the win. But I don't think it'll be that close. I don't think it'll be a 10-point game like that was. I don't think Tennessee is going to have to come from behind. And even if it does, they do get down. This team's proven themselves. They did it against Pitt a few weeks ago. I don't think that'll happen. I think this is one they'll probably control from start to finish. And so you add in the fact that you can win this game, and you should win this game with that atmosphere, a sold-out stadium, college game day, 3:30 kickoff, which to me is the perfect time to kick off a football game. Great. All of those, it's like the perfect storm just kind of comes together. I think it's going to be insane. And I'm with you, Tyler. I'm kind of excited to kind of, be there for it all. I know I'd love to go Saturday morning, get to campus early and just get the vibe of college game day being there. And obviously maybe do a little reporting on that as well. I'm sure people who won't be there would love to hear about it.
Definitely so. Tyler, if you want to add to that too, tell us, your thoughts, your excitement level. I mean, even as media, I mean, yeah, we're working. We could care less about what happens outside the game, but this is college game day. I mean, this is a atmosphere you want to cover. I mean, it's fair. I mean, Pittsburgh is fun and all. It's a great environment, but when you have a 3:30 slot on CBS, Brad Nessler there, it's college game day. I mean, this is everything you want in college football.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was actually thinking about the last time that game day came to Tennessee, the Tennessee-Florida game. And, that one there was a lot of hype there for that one. And there was a lot of excitement, and there were a lot of people really excited there. But, I mean, man, I just think it's going to be a ton more this time. And I think it's because Tennessee is a lot better now, or considered, there's a lot more of a view that they're going to win and win big. Another time that I think of was, the Oklahoma game in 2015, where Baker Mayfield came in here and it was just a massive game, and he was quoted later as saying, I forget exactly what he said, it's not a direct quote, but it's the loudest he's ever heard, or he'll always remember that the sound of Neyland Stadium or whatever. And that was a Checker Neyland game. So that's one of those games that people have talked about in years past as, oh wow, the tenacity was there, the level of excitement. I'm with you guys. I think this could be more than any of those even. I mean, and it just shows how much, and people have talked about this over and over, but when you're Tennessee and you have a team that wins and produces a good product, and that you're going to absolutely demolish Akron, because to be fair, Tennessee in the last 5 years has played teams like that and have not demolished them like they should have. I remember when Butch Jones' team played Ohio a couple of years ago, and I think it was like 31-19 or something. I mean, it wasn't what it should have been, but when you have a team come in here and just dismantle Akron and just look, as close to perfect in a lot of ways as you can, and then you have a big game coming like this, I mean, it's just I've seen big environments at Neyland, but I have a feeling this is going to be the biggest I've ever seen.
I agree. And, Neyland, obviously, I'm new to the beat, as everyone knows, but I've been in Neyland, let's see, 2 games there. Obviously, just a fan of the stands. I went there for a UK-Tennessee game one year with a buddy of mine. I think I was 14, 15, and I was there when I was 16, 17 to watch my college play. And even then, electric atmosphere. I can't imagine it this weekend where everything is there for a game. Everything you want in a game is in one spot. That's going to be awesome to see. And, Billy Napier today said it best. He said, I think we understand what comes with that. This is a direct quote. And then he noted that the Gators did a number of things during fall camp and training camp to get ready for crowd noise. Obviously, he said it's the SEC, everything's going to be loud, and no matter where you play. He said Tennessee's a different animal. He said his players know that. They're ready for it. So we shall see how that goes for them. But, back to the game. It's 3:30 Saturday. We'll all three be there. Great coverage coming our way. I mean, it's a crazy game. It's gonna be awesome. That's all it is. We'll have stuff all week long for you guys. One more thing to talk about today, I think that kind of stood out from today's press conference is Hendon Hooker. He shared his pregame vibes. Well, what he does before every game. People probably wondered that. This is a top quarterback in the SEC and college football for that matter. You didn't think he'd be rock jamming out to some big time rap music and getting the guys hyped in the locker room. He does get hyped in the locker room. He adapts his teammates up, his good friends. But he does something else that, I saw it. I had no idea. I mean, we heard it today. We're like, what? Really? He listens to smooth gospel music, slow jam gospel music before every game. On top of that, he reads a devotional that him and Joe Milton are reading together before every game in the locker room. And daps his teammates up. And look at it, he goes out there and shines in games. It blew my mind. What do you guys think about that?
Yeah, when you think about it too, maybe that's not the playlist a lot of college football players, especially a starting quarterback in the SEC, listens to get himself hyped up. But, I think back to SEC media days, and we had a chance to interview Hendon Hooker when I was with the Daily Times, and not one-on-one or anything, but kind of in a scrum session. And I asked him about his devotional, and this is a guy that used his NIL deal the chance to do NIL. He used it to make a children's devotional book that's faith based, and he's a guy that kind of wears that on his sleeve, and it was one of those that kind of took me. I thought it was funny, and then you think about it, and you're like, oh, well, you know what, that makes sense. He seems like a guy that would definitely love that kind of music, and just a good, I think, good representation for UT. He's been, and it totally makes sense for him to do something like that.
Yeah, I totally agree there, and I think it just sort of speaks to what everyone feels about Hendon Hooker. I mean, he's a guy that obviously not every college football player has scandal or has something like that, but when you have a guy who's a leader of a team who acts in an upstanding way and really does act as a leader, and you can even just tell by his composure. I mean, he's a calm guy. He does legitimately seem like a really good leader. A lot of times we hear coach speak or players speak in press conferences about, oh, he's so great and all that stuff, but he genuinely seems like a really good guy, and he seems like a guy that is just does where, like Noah said, wears his faith on his sleeve, and really does try to do the right things on and off the field. So no, I can absolutely see why Tennessee fans get behind Hendon Hooker. And I think obviously it helps when he's out there slinging touchdowns and running Josh Heupel's offense to perfection. But I think that's why Tennessee fans are so excited about him, because you have a guy that seems just like a really good player and just a good person on and off the field.
I completely agree. Just watching him over the years too, how he's progressed. Look at last year; it didn't start. And Milt was the starter. He steps in, shocks everyone, proves what he can do, and now he's excelling in Josh Heupel's system, which is awesome to see. We love talking to him. 300 yards, 2 touchdowns on Saturday against Akron. Great game for him once again. Somebody else to talk about real quick: Jalen Hyatt, a guy who people have been high on. Great offseason, and this year, I mean, look what he's done through 3 weeks. Against Akron, 5 catches, 166 yards, 2 touchdowns on 6 targets. Longest catch was for 57 yards. Noah wrote a great feature for our site, VarsItReport.com, about his big performance and start to the season. Noah, I'll go there. What are your thoughts on Hyatt? Obviously, at Pittsburgh, he impressed me some. And obviously, last week he's shining. I think behind Cedric Tillman, this might be a number 2 guy. I mean, we have a lot of receivers in that room that are really good. Any given night, someone can step up. But when you have, Rue McCoy's there now too. You have some other guys in that room. But Jalen Hyatt's a guy who I think is a clear-cut number 2, number 3 guy who can make some big plays.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we talked about it too recently. When you had a guy like him who came in 2020 and just wasn't a whole lot of positives on Tennessee's offense and Jeremy Pruitt's last year, but he was one of them. He made some big catches in the times he was targeted. And then he came out in 2021 with a lot of hype, and Cedric Tillman stepped up, and you had Velus Jones here, you had Javonte Payton, some really good receivers here. And the times the ball did go to Jalen Hyatt, he didn't really perform well. So in the offseason, the coaches were talking about the work he was putting in, and he was talking about the work he was putting in. But it was one of those things where you just kind of, if you're not in the facilities like we're not, or fans aren't, you're just kind of sit and wait and see if that was true. And I think what we've seen in 3 games, it's 100% been true. I mean, he looks different. He's playing different. He's been reliable. And as impressive as last week was, I agree with you, Tyler. He was impressive against Pitt. I mean, the times he was targeted, he caught the ball and made some plays, and they've been going to him a lot, and some of that might have to do with the fact that Cedric Tillman's been zoned in on by defenses, but that's a good thing because when Cedric Tillman's out there, obviously he's going to get a lot of attention. So now you've got a guy like Jalen Hyatt who's proven 3 games in, hey, if they're going to go on him, that's going to leave me open. And I think that's been really impressive to see so far.
Yeah, and I'll just add there real quick. I mean, just how explosive is this Tennessee receiving core? I mean, you got Jalen Hyatt, and then you add. I mean, obviously you have Cedric Tillman, and then you add Squirrel White, who is just insanely fast. I mean, that's what sticks out to me the most about this receiving core, just how fast these guys are. And it just really seems like it works perfectly with Josh Heupel's offense when, you got guys like Hendon Hooker and Joe Milton slinging the ball, and, Squirrel White is, 20 yards past, the safety. And it's, it's just really cool to see that and just see the way that these pieces have worked together. And again, guys like Squirrel White can come in, just right away and make an impact. So it's, that's the thing that has always stood out to me and others as well about Jalen Hyatt, how fast and explosive that guy is. When you put other guys around him that are that way too, I mean, it's just, and Tennessee, ideally would have these guys for years down the road. So it's got to be a really good a look to Vols fans right now to see those guys streaking down the sidelines.
100%. This is a fun offense. I think it'll be fun to watch all year long. We'll see how they progress. We'll see if Cedric Tillman's ready to go on Saturday. Guys, a great another podcast this week to start the week off with. We'll have a couple more this week for you guys. On top of all of our other coverage on VolReport.com, game previews, enterprise stories throughout the week, features, news and tidbits, press conference, quotes, you name it, we have it. So Saturday to Saturday, make sure you're following us for your coverage, VolReport.com, Twitter at Tennessee Rivals. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. I think you can find it by searching just VolReport.com and then the search icon. Subscribe to us. That way you don't miss anything that comes out. Follow us on Twitter. Keep up with all of our work. Much more to come this week. It is Florida, Tennessee week, number 11 versus number 20. Saturday, Neyland Stadium, College Game Day. We will talk to you soon. Be good, and we'll see you soon.